Good day, students. This is going to be a Quamichan Computers 8.9 tutorial video. Today we're going to be making a platformer using the Godot engine. We're going to be assuming that you have not done this before, and so I'm going to lead you through step by step as we go. So we're going to begin by opening up Godot. You'll find it in your launcher or on your desktop. And you're going to choose create. Now your version may not be the latest version that I currently have is version 4.3. You may have a newer or older, but these should still work. You're going to go create. You're going to browse where you're going to save this project. All right. If you are going to be saving on your USB, you're going to come up to here and you will find your USB and select that and then hit select current folder to save on there. I, however, will be wanting to put this in my grade 8s folder for this tutorial, and I'm going to hit select current folder. I am then going to name this grade 8 tutorial. I recommend that you choose compatibility. You do not need to have any version control. You can say none and hit create and edit. Now that we've got the editor open, we'll quickly go over some of the basics. This will be your active scene. It is currently on a 3D scene. The active scene will be here, and when you add in objects, or what we call nodes, they will appear in your active scene. We will be primarily working in our 2D scene today, and later on in scripting. We will not be using 3D, so you can switch over to 2D. We will be adding nodes to our scene, and the nodes can be created and added over here. When we create a node, for example, let's choose 2D node scene, it will generate a node. This one's a node 2D, and its properties will appear in the inspector over here. Now, by default, I have all of them open, just so that it's quick and easy to find. If you would like to have that property turned on, you can do so by going over here and telling it to expand all. If you want that to be a normal feature, you can go into editor and manage your editor's features, but you can ask that if you're in class. Okay, with the 2D node, we're going to rename this world. Now, when we save our scenes, that saved data will be saved in our file system. All right, we can go scene, save scene to save, or you'll see the hotkey, which is Command S, or if you're using a Windows computer, Control S. All right, we're just going to save the scene. You'll notice it's named the first object, which is what we want, and we'll hit save. And here we go. We have our world scene. Now, you hopefully have been working on some pixel art for this tutorial. We're going to want to bring that pixel art in. But before we begin doing that, we're going to set up our basic project settings. So we're going to go over here to project, choose project, and project settings. And we're going to start off with the window. Okay, we want our game area to be smaller, right? We're going to use our width and height. We're going to change that to 320 by 180 because we've made lovely pixel art and we want to be zoomed in. But we don't want the play space to be so cramped. And so what we're going to do is we're going to change the stretch mode, and we're going to switch it to the viewport. However, we want it to get bigger, and we're going to go under advanced, and we'll use the override. So the override, we're going to put it 1280 by 720. And that should be a decent size to have your game display larger. Next, over here, we're going to scroll down until we get to textures. And we want our pixel art to render out to the nearest pixel. So here where it says default textures, we're going to say nearest. All right. Before progressing further, we're going to go into our input maps. We're going to be creating some new input actions. We want our character to be able to move to the right, left, and we want our character to jump. All right. Now we'll add keys we'd like to use for that. All right. For the right key, it's listening. So just press the key you'd like. I'm going to use D for my right key and hit OK. Left key, A, and jump, spacebar. Once you've chosen your keys, you'll hit close. You may feel like you want to add other buttons, but we're not going to program more than just left, right, and jump. All right, we've got our scene. We've did our project settings. Let's quickly save. So here again, up here to save, or Command S, Control S to save. Okay, we're going to bring in the artwork. So let's do so. We're going to, if you're in full screen like me, go out of full screen and open up your files. Locate the name of the game that you called it, mine grade 8 tutorial. Open up that folder, and we're going to drop in our artwork. Now, if you have your USB will be over here. You can drag your artwork into here. I've got mine copied and pasted. So there we go. This is all the pixel art that I created, my background, my character, my enemy, tile set, and objects. Well, when I come back into here, you'll see that they load, and we're ready to go. All right, so now we got all our art assets. We've got our world scene. It is time to create our character. So we're going to start off by choosing to create a new scene. So we're going to click this button to add a new empty scene. Instead of choosing 2D though, we're going to choose other node. In the search area, we're going to look up for a character body 2D and hit create. All right, we're going to rename this character body 2D player. All right, this character body 2D will move. It'll move this tiny node around that will not render. We need to have other nodes to provide context for our character. We're going to need, for example, our sprite, an animation player, and so forth. To add more nodes, we use this button right here. It says add child node if you mouse over it. Or you can use Command A or Control A to add. We're going to search for a sprite 2D, and we're going to hit create. We're going to select our player again, and we're going to then add our animation player. So look up animation player. We're needing to control its collision. So we're going to look up collision shape 2D and add that. All right. And lastly, we want to be able to control the camera. And so we're going to use a remote transform 2D, and this will control the camera later. Now you'll notice that we have exclamation marks saying, hey, something's up. If we look at the collision, it's saying, hey, there is no collision shape provided. We'll get there. And this is going to say that there is no property that it can control at the moment, and we'll get there later on. All right, starting off, we want to take our player, and we've got all the notes, so we should probably save it. Remember, you can go up to Scene, Save Scene, or Command S, Control S to save. Since we named this player, the scene is going to be named Player, which is what we want. And we're going to hit save. we're going to select our 2D node, or sorry, our sprite 2D, and we're going to add our sprite's texture. So over here in the properties where it says texture empty, we're going to say load and choose our player sprite and hit open. Now I've got mine in a strip, likely you do as well. We only want to have one of those, and so we need to count them. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and they're going vertically. So here under animations, under the V frame, I'm going to change this from 1 to 7, right? And that will make it that my character is only displaying the one image. All right, next, we're going to give it its collision. So we're going to come down here for the collision. Under the properties, we're going to go to shape and empty. We're going to choose a new rectangle shape. And we're going to adjust this for our player. Now this is going to be its movement collision. I imagine that my character floats a bit in the air. So I'm going to have it that it's down on the bottom. And you're going to determine where the top of your character is when it jumps. I want this to be the top of its head when it collides. And when it's moving towards a wall, I want it to go into the wall a little bit because it will look visually nice, but that'll stop about there. Likewise on the other side. All right. And that feels right, at least for my character. Right. Adjust this appropriate for your character, right? The feet. If you have it too far out and we get to an edge, it'll make it that character feels like they're floating. Actually, I'm going to make mine a little thinner. All right. So save and S or Control S. Next up, we're going to be adding our animations. So we're going to select our animation player. All right. This will be our animation player, and you'll notice this time we've got another window down here for more properties, not just these ones. This is going to be our animation timeline. We're going to be creating our first animation, and we're going to go to animation, new, and we're going to type in our first animation. So we're going to do our idle animation. Remember, whatever spelling you use here, I'm using a capital I for my idle animation. When we get to code and we're calling our animations, we need to remember that I used a capital I. If you use lowercase, just remember you use lowercase. Hit OK. Next, we want our image to be tracked on here. So we can come up to our 2D and we come under animation, and we're going to be recording the frame value currently at 0, which is what I want. I'm going to hit this key with the plus button, and I'm going to hit create. Now, you'll notice that down here on our timeline, we got an image of our sprite, which is what we need. And I don't have an idle animation, but I want it to stay here and not just play to the end of the thing. I want it to loop. So coming over here, I'm going to tell the animation to loop, and it's just going to sit there on this image. All right, next, we're going to be making our next animation. So animation, new, and we're going to put in our jump. All right, locate our jump pose. So we're going to come to frame. My jump pose is right on frame 1. I'm going to hit create. All right, and here it's jumped moved forward in the animation timeline to frame 2, assuming that I want to add the next frame at animation. But you'll notice down here, I have my jump pose, and it's thinking that I want my fall pose next. I don't. I'm going to move this back on my timeline to 0. It'll snap this back to my jump pose, and I'm going to loop it. Next, we're going to go animation new, and we're going to do our fall and hit create. Go up to my fall pose, hit the key, hit create, loop it, and again, put it back to 0. Right now it's gone to the first of the move animation. All right. Next, we're going to make our move animation. And in this one, we're going to actually want it to help step to the next one. So it'll be helpful there. animation new, move, create, find the start of the movement animation, hit add frame. And this time we're going to continue to add the frame and it's going to step through until we get to them. So 1, 2, 3. All right, we should have a total of 4. Now it's a little hard to tell unless we zoom in on our timeline. So over here, we're going to zoom in on our timeline, stretch it to the right, and you'll begin to see all of your frames. Now, my animation is only so many frames long, right? And so I'm going to adjust this. Now, I just noticed that this is snapping every 0.003 seconds. I want this to snap differently. I'm going to have it snap at 0.05. All right. This means that I'm going to have to adjust my animation like so. 0.05. Okay. And you know what? I'm not even going to do that. I want to have that it snaps for every 1.1. So I just realized how fast that's going to be. So try again. 1. There we go. So I want mine to be 0.4 long and looping. I'm going to test the animation. There we go. I feel like that's good enough for my character. You're going to need to play with your timing. For your character, you can change the snap ratio, or you can just manually adjust. But be aware that like 0.1 of a second is pretty fast. If you're going lower at like 0.03, that was a lot. And I don't understand why I had it so low, but I did. So change the snapping if you need to, and change the timing to make your animation work. All right, we're gonna stop that animation, go back to 0. We now have all the animations. We should save. Command S. Okay. Next, we have our character. It is here, but we need to give it some code because at the moment, our character is not going to be able to move. So let's do this. We're going to come to our player. We're going to add a script right here, a coding script. We've got our character, this. Now you may have template turned on. Please turn that off. We're going to be hard coding all of our code. And we're going to hit create. All right. You should just have one line of code already pre-typed for you, and it extends character body 2D. Just to make my scene a little bigger and easier to see, I'm going to just go full scene, and I'm going to hide the animation. All right. So we're going to be putting in some variables to start off with. It's a good idea to put your variables at the start of your code so that the rest of your code can access it. All right. So we're going to be hitting enter to make a new line. You don't need to, but it's good for visualization. And we're going to be creating a variable called speed. I'm using capitals just so that I understand what is a variable that I created. All right, and I'm going to give it a speed of 200. All right, I'm going to then give it a jump of -400. The reason why I'm doing negative, if we come back to 2D for a moment, is here you'll notice that this is 0, and if it's going up, that's a -50 right there. All right, so an up direction, -100. Okay, and so it's going to take its orientation and jump until it gets to -400. Now that might feel too tall and too high. And we can adjust that later, but I'm going to use 400 for now. Back to the code. All right. Next, we're going to be using our gravity. All right. And we're going to actually grab the gravity that's in our project settings. So we're going to type in project settings. All right. Dot get setting. And then we're going to type in a string for this. So we want to grab it from our physics. And you'll see physics 2D default gravity. We want to select that and add it in. I'm selecting these with my arrow keys on my keyboard and then hitting the tab button to add it in. Okay, next we're going to be needing two on-ready variables. To create these, the fastest thing to do is to select the object that you want to be ready with and to pull it in. When you grab it, we're going to be grabbing out 2D. We're going to pull it over here and we're going to hold down Control on the keyboard and then let go. Oh, did they change it in this version? Let's see. Did they change it to command? Oh, wait. If you're on a Windows computer, you're going to need to do Control. If you're on a Mac, it's going to be Command. They localized it in this version. All right, same thing with the animation player. So Mac, hold down Command and release, and it will do it. On a Windows computer, you hold down Control and release. Previous versions, that was not the case. All right, moving on. Now that we have all of our variables and we're ready to go, we're going to start writing our first bit of code. So we're going to create a function, and this is going to be a physics process. All right, and you'll see that it's auto-completing our selection. You can hit Tab to auto-fill in. All right, let's explain a little bit about this. So we got physics process. It's going to be using the delta, which is more or less the processing speed of your computer. And it's going to be doing it as a float. A float is percentage, and as right now, typing that as void, so 0. All right. Next, we're going to be putting in our commands. So we're going to check if our character is not on the floor. So if not is on floor, so if our character is not on the floor, we want to apply gravity. So we're going to take our velocity of our character in the Y position, up and down position, and we're going to always add our gravity, and we're going to times that by delta. All right, and if this was a game that was like running on other machines that were slower or whatever, it would then be doing it at the processing speed of that computer, which is important. Okay, otherwise you get some lag. So if input, we're now going to be checking for action is pressed, right? And we want it just pressed in this case, and we're going to use our jump action, all right? And our character is on the floor, so we want to be able to jump. If our character is on the floor and we're pressing the jump action button, we want to jump our character. So we'll take our velocity, y, and jump our character. All right, so it's going to take our jump position or our current position in the y, and it's going to make it equal our jump, which is a -400. All right, we're going to create a local variable. So these are variables grabbed in throughout, but we want this local variable to determine our character's direction. And we're only wanting to figure that out in our physics process. We're going to take our variable, we're going to call it direction, and we're going to use an input. and we're going to get the axis between the left button and the right button. All right. And that will be, in our case, 1 and -1, and then any number in between, -1 and 1 to make it go right or left. This way, we can create a little math formula checking if direction. So we're checking our direction. Then we want our velocity dot x, because we're moving in our x position, to be equal to our direction, right? Whatever, left or right, times it by our speed, right? And so that will accelerate us to the right or to the left, according to if it's 1, right? So our current velocity, say, is 0 unless we're pressing something. And this will be, say, right 1 times our speed, which is 200. So 1 times 200 is 200, and it'll move us 200 in a velocity. All right. We want an else statement, right? Else velocity dot x equals move toward our velocity dot x 0 and our speed. All right, so if our character is not going right or left, we want our character to stop. And so what we're doing is we're going to have it move towards 0. So take as our current velocity, which is, say, 200, and we want it to hit 0, and we're going to reduce that by our speed until we hit 0. All right. Next, we're going to tell it to move and slide. Okay. This is all the code we're going to do currently for our character. It will allow our character to move. It will not play our animations. We'll have to communicate that later, but for now, we're just going to have it that our character can move around. Let's save. Remember, you can go up to Scene and hit Save Scene, or Command S or Control S to save. Next, we're going to go back up to 2D, and we're going to make a brand new scene. And we're now going to choose Other Node, and we're going to look up Tile and choose Tilemap. Oh, they're changing things. Okay, they have changed. They're going to be changing to a new system. So that's they're phasing out Tilemap and they're moving it into Tilemap Layer. So we'll instead choose Tilemap Layer. Hit Create. All right, so we've got a Tilemap Layer, and we're going to need to set up our basics for the Tilemap Layer. In our settings over here, we're going to be creating a new tile set. So tile set empty, we're going to say new tile set. All right, we're going to want to change a couple of the properties here. First thing, our rendering quadrants. We created our tiles to be 32. So we're going to change this to 32. All right. And now we're going to expand our tile set by clicking this to get other properties. And we're going to change our tile size to 32 and our other X and Y to 32, 32. We need to add a physics element. So where it says physics layer, you'll open that up, add element, and there we go. Next up, we're going to be creating a new tile down here. All right, so let's do so. We're going to go from tile map to tile set, down to the properties, and we got currently blank. We're going to locate our tile image over here, and we're going to drag and drop it. Now it's saying, hey, the Atlas texture was modified. Would you like to automatically create tiles for this? And we're going to say, yes, please help us. And by letting it do it automatically, it has put it each into its own quadrants. If you want it to be custom, of course, hit no and change it. Now, this has all been divided up for us into its own regions, which is perfect. We just need to add the collision shapes for it. So we're going to go to Paint, select a property editor, and we're going to paint in our physics layer. It's given us a default shape, which is what we want. So we've got our textures all over there, and we just paint in a collision shape for each layer. All right, perfect. Now our tile set is done. We're ready to begin creating with it, but not in our Tilemap layer. We're going to rename this Tilemap. It's just easier for me to think that way. So save, Command S, or scene C, or Control S, and hit save. Good. Now we got our tile map, we got our player, we got our world. We're going to select our world. We're now going to be adding our player and our tile map to our world. We're going to start off by adding our tile map, then our player. To do so, we're going to link these scenes into here. Come to here where it says instance, and we're going to choose an instance of our tile map and hit open. Select our world, add an instance of a player. All right, and there we go. You got your player here. You'll see this is the rough camera size of where your camera is going to be, but we're going to have it that our camera is going to follow our player. So this is, we're not going to use this camera. To add our camera, we're going to select our world, add over here, not an instance, and we're going to look up camera. We want a camera 2D and hit create. So we've got our camera around our player. I like to enable smoothing. So under properties, position smoothing, I'm going to click enabled. Then we're going to come to our player. We're going to right click on our player and we're going to choose editable children. This will allow us to see the child nodes underneath the parent node. And we're going to now choose our remote and we're going to assign a camera to our player. This will now make it that the player's movement will control our camera. Minimize that for now. All right, we got a player, but if we were to hit run our game, because we've coded in gravity, it would just fall to its, well, there's no death, but it just fall forever. We need to add a tile map. So we're going to go to our tile map. It's selected tile map, and we can now grab the tiles to paint. You could grab one tile, or you could grab a selection of tiles to do that. So I'm going to grab a selection of tiles here. All right, and put that edge there. I want some ground to repeat this way and paint. And you can design a more complex world. For myself, I'm just going to make a really quick little obstacle course there. Maybe like this, like so. And something like that. I'll add another one of those. All right, so there's my world. You can make a more complex world than that, but this is going to be my world. And I'm going to hit save. Now, if I hit play up here, it will play the current selected scene, and it will even say, select the scene. Yes, select this current scene, and it will play our world. So here it is. Here's our world. No animations, but we're moving right and left, and we can jump, and you can test out to say, hey, you know what? I think this jump works. No. And you can go with that. Otherwise, you could be like, you know what? I'm not jumping high enough. I can't make this jump. I don't play test it, but figure it out. If you need to, either add more to your world in the sense of tile map, right? You can come here, select this again, and be like, yeah, you know what? My character can't make that jump unless I give an assistant block, and so I'm going to put a block here, and it will jump over here, and then I can make a jump. Whatever it is you think you need. All right. And then to make a jump, or you can adjust the jump height into here, make it a higher or lower number. Now that we got our basic world, we're going to jump back to our player, come back to our code. So you can click it here, or you just go back to the script. And we want to add in those animations that we made for our player. We're going to hide the animation. There we go. We're going to be creating a new function, and this is going to be a custom function. It won't autofill, and we're going to call this function update animation. And we're going to be using a direction. So we're going to type in a direction. So it's a property that we'll need, right? And then add the colon at the end. All right. Now it's upset because we don't have any code underneath it. Let's fix that. All right. So we're going to do if our direction does not equal, so exclamation mark. You could also type in not equal 0. So if we're not moving right or left, we want to play our move animation. But before that, we want to make it that our image flips right or left, right? And so we're going to talk to our Sprite 2D, which is right here. And we want to access the flip horizontal command, flip H. And we want to say, hey, take our direction. And if it's greater than 0, give us a number, a -1 or a +1, so that it flips either direction. Then play the animation. So we're going to use animation player dot play, and we want to play move. All right, which it should do because we've created a animation called move. If we select our animation player here, we've got an animation called move. It's a capital M. Ours is going to be capital M. It should work. All right, next we're going to be doing an else. So if our character is standing at 0, well, then we want to play the idle animation. All right. All right. But what if our character is jumping? Well, then we're going to say if not is on floor, right? So that means that they're in the air. And we're going to check our velocity. So if our velocity in the y is greater than is less than 0, sorry, because we're negative, we want to start going upwards, meaning we're jumping. Then we're going to play our animation dot play. I'll play our jump. Okay. But if we are gaining a positive number, then we're going to have an else statement because our character is now falling. We want to play fall instead. Great. We've created this function, but this function is not going to run all by itself unless we throw it into our physics process. I mean, it'll run in the background, but we won't see the results of it. So we're going to come over here and we're going to call the function. So we're going to call update animation, and we're going to give it our direction. Now it's grabbing the direction here, right? And so it'll take whatever our input is and add it there. And so this should now play our animations for us. So we can come back to our world, 2D, hit play. And hey, here we go. We got animations. Our character's flipping, jumping, falling. Perfect. Thank you for watching.